Today we're talking policing productivity review again, and this is the second of a two-part series, a mini-series we're going to call it, on the policing productivity. I'm really pleased that the lead reviewer has been able to join us again, Alan Pughsley. This QR code is on the screen there, and the link, if you want to go back and replay the first half, please do, and you'll be able to catch up on everything that we've covered. So just to recap, the Policing Productivity Review was commissioned by the Home Office in the summer of 2022. Against the backdrop of the 20,000 new police officers, the significant challenges in trust and confidence across policing, and the greater expectations on public demands. The Commission was an in-depth study to consider ways in which policing productivity amongst the Home Office forces in England and Wales could be improved. So, Alan, I'll start with the same question I did last week, but I think it's really important we do revisit this. Why does productivity matter to policing?
Good morning again. Hi, David. Well, the same as last week. Look, anybody knows the current situation and the future situation from a financial and resourcing impact on policing is challenging at best. So it is hugely important, if not an absolute requirement, to get the very best out of what resource and people you have. That means more officers therefore on the street, more people investigating crime, and more people working in local communities, which of course all leads to a better service to the public, and as you say, improving that trust and confidence in policing. So I think it's an absolute requirement and necessity to get the very best out of what you've got for the next 5-10 years at least.
So, Alan, we covered what the review was last week. So can we go through some of the key findings and recommendations from what you and the team found?
Yes, so look, at a very high strategic level, and this is in all a culmination of our 3 reports, 1, 2 and 3 to be provided and given to government and the Home Office at the end of this month. Over 60 million hours of police officer and police staff time that can be better used and better invested back into policing. That equates to over 30,000 police officers and police staff. So the headline you pause there is a huge amount of opportunity to therefore use that time and that amount of resource in a better way for the reasons that I said to start with. It's over a 5-year period. There are about 60 just over recommendations, all in my view completely implementable. Some a bit tougher than the others, but this is a 5-year period we're talking about. The areas that we looked at, so just to reassure people that we were looking, I hope, at the right areas, included neighbourhood policing, how well we investigate, the police investigate criminality, barriers to policing and service delivery, including mental health, custody, how we can use technology and AI in the best possible current and future ways. And of course, we looked at people, the most important, one might argue, asset of our organisations, your organisations, and the workforce, and how workforce can be best utilised in really difficult times. Headlines from phase 1 was data is a big one. It's not accurate enough, it's not timely enough, and it needs to be more full. And one of our recommendations adopted and will be delivered, I'm sure, by the College of Policing is a new and up and running data hub for that very reason. Policing is not brilliant at evaluating the true productivity gain of things that are inputted. So we're very good at saying 98% of people were trained, but we're not very good at understanding the honest output and outcome from that training. So better evaluation from a productivity point of view. Technology and PDS have worked with us very closely all the way through the review. Thank you. But look, 97% of funding goes on maintaining systems. Leaves very little, doesn't it, for innovation and creativity, and therefore our recommendation talks about that. And workforce, some really simple things that can be done. If currently 3/4 of the forces moved into the top quartile of what people are doing from a sickness point of view, as in returning people to work in a meaningful way, we can get something like 2 million hours back into policing just from everybody else doing what the best forces are currently doing in that space. Phase 2 headlines, the big number came from AI and robotics and automation and what the advantages there are for in policing. But we stress for trust and confidence in that, to move forward, good governance, good monitoring, good enabling frameworks and a consistent approach pretty much across policing. The recommendations about sickness were enhanced, so we then included how people can get the best use from staff when they are recovering from injury or illness in a really sensible way. And we did some work on custody and missing persons. Again, technology, to be fair, being the key enabler of making all of those more efficient and more effective. And then finally, in answer to this question, phase 3 is about to be finished and published, and the emerging findings around neighbourhood policing replicate many things that we found in the first 1 or 2. There needs to be a clear definition about what we're talking about. There has to be a consistency of approach across every police force. There has to be a stability of the number of officers and staff in that working environment, not pulled away from many other things. And believe it or not, there has to be a better performance framework to truly measure how well that's happening. Investigations, no surprise here. We will focus on training, supervision, but also culture, and a question about is it really seen as important as people say it is in policing, and if so, does the evidence support that? And then finally, some advice on our view on accreditation, really focusing on forensics and where that can be more consistently applied. So I think that is probably all the headlines, David.
Please keep your questions coming in, but question is, how should forces really start approaching the implementation on these recommendations?
So there's 2 ways that I would suggest, humbly, and some forces have started doing this. They've spoken to us as a productivity team. They've asked carefully what they think are recommendations from reports 1 and 2 has been shared, remember, with chief constables, that they can implement under their own strength and with the support of their police and crime commissioners or mayors. And that is part 1. Forces, you don't need to wait. You can do some of this, and we can talk about that a little. There are 3 forces we're aware of at this moment. And for example, Essex is, as one of our slideshows here, they've already got a unit. They've got a productivity team, huge credit to their chief officer team. And I want to pick through all of the bullet points. You can see them yourselves. But they start by looking at review 1. They looked at our recommendations of what it meant for them. They then arrived at point 2 is hugely important, pro rata savings for their force within that 5-year period. And then they started really drilling into, let's start implementing some of these areas. And right care, right person, redaction of documentations, better use of workforce and people coming back to work from a sickness point of view, and efficiency in process data by way of example. Just are some of the examples where Essex are then extrapolating the figures, and they believe they will have significant savings on hours of staff and officers to be redeployed in a really much better way. The second way, so that's forces. I'll come to 2 other forces in a moment. The second way this can happen is the College of Policing. So I mentioned it last time. The centre of policing productivity is to, as long as all things remain equal, be created in the College of Policing. And that must be your point of contact if you're trying to get consistency across. But you mustn't, in my humble view, don't just wait, take the initiative. Significant, I'm sure, influences online. Speak to your chief officer team. They've got this information. They can do this. So Essex have already done it. I'll very quickly just mention 2 others, if I may, David. So South Yorkshire. South Yorkshire, similarly, they've done, so you'll see a consistency of approach across all 3 forces, which is great to see. They've looked at the assumptions that we made and they've talked about, and then they focus their work currently on barriers, the workforce and technology. Again, 3 of the big recommendations and areas that you can make a significant difference on. They then have done a good analysis of how long things are taking. This is productivity in action now. How long things are taking. Should we need to do that in the way that it's currently being done? Spotting the inefficiencies and changing and doing it. I touched on the model process previously. We did it with 6 forces. South Yorkshire was not one of those 6, but they've taken the principle and they're looking and have created something similar that can work alongside if the model process is rolled out nationally, which I hope it is, to reduce demand. And then, this is a strategic and significant shift from the chief officer team. the demand board is now called the Demand and Productivity Board. So it drives, shapes, and monitors progress against the work that people are doing. So both South Yorkshire and Essex, incredibly well done, in my view. And then thirdly, Staffordshire is another great example of some work that is taken place. They've taken the initiative and they're implementing the work. So, again, they've looked through our recommendations. We have a repetitive commentary to my fantastic team that these recommendations are implementable, they're tangible and they're doable, not maybe in some strange world that you can write them nicely, but they are not implementable. They are. They again at the strategic level, they've looked at our recommendations against their change program. No surprise here, many things, and we found some really good things when we were out there, are already in place, but then they're looking at what else they can do moving forward. Please don't miss bullet point 3, listening to your team, listening to your staff. So officers and staff are therefore shaping what happens and what goes forward. And again, 3 of the big takeaways that people could do right now and are doing right now to make a difference are right care, right person, and that's all about mental health that I'm sure everybody knows about. Documented redaction, automated. This is happening in most, if not all, police forces, but there's a question in my mind about consistency of application, of course, and any other use of AI and technology to drive forward. So for me, and we have, of course, been in touch with and spoken to both Staffordshire, South Yorkshire, and indeed Essex, and it's great to see innovation, creativity, and personal ownership and leadership by those senior officers and police staff members taking our recommendations forward.
And you mentioned the redaction there, and obviously the PDS has been playing a key part in creating the redaction framework that's now available to all the forces, and we're still continuing to look at more effective ways to do that. I think one of the things that I've seen through the reports, and as we've been discussing these webinars, Alan, was about the model process. What is model process in the terms of the Policing Productivity Review?
So in my view, it's the beginning of a fantastic tool, and a tool that isn't and wasn't in policing in all of my time, that's for sure. It's a digital information platform that we, as the productivity team, working alongside consultancy and alongside PDS, thank you, your staff were with us permanently, and then working with all forces, but very closely with SIX to start with, to create a digital tool that is populated with a lot of performance and, for the first time, financial information. And it gives you a very simple, good for my brain, a very simple information tool, a 2x2 matrix at the beginning that tells you, honestly tells you how well you are doing from a performance delivery and a cost element across it in 4 areas of policing. And the 4 areas were burglary dwelling, contact management, antisocial behaviour, and areas of domestic abuse. The data then provided gives you where you are and immediately allows you to see how the other forces are doing by comparison, both in performance and cost. And it causes you to, I hope, discuss with your colleagues how they are doing, what they're doing, so you can consider doing one and the same. The whole process is mapped on a process map, so you can literally pick it up and monitor it if necessary, and it's an organic tool. So we created this within about a 12-month period. Every other force is thinking and wanted to be part of it, and the recommendations from the then government and the Home Office back to report 1 was that this process should be and must be developed further by the new Centre of Police and Productivity. So it's a great tool to really inform, at the moment anyway, senior officers and staff decision making, but I can see this in the hand of a local policing officer or police staff or PCSO in neighbourhood policing in the future.
Yeah. A couple of the questions coming in, and there's a bit of a theme on some of the questions that are coming in from the chat. Thanks to everybody. Did you do any looking at the structure of policing? There's questions about the number of territorial forces. There's questions about the ratio of senior officers to higher ups, or was it more focused on the processes and things that actually happen in the forces?
So with pretty strict terms of reference from the Home Secretary, and we were not requested or allowed to look at the structure of policing or police forces. So ours was about productivity processes, and therefore led to our findings. So we didn't go anywhere near the structure.
And another question that's come in was, how do forces leverage the investment that they may need to enable technologies to release some of the productivity findings?
So the here and now and then the future. So the future, our recommendations say clearly and strongly from the future that the centre, therefore the Home Office, government and policing, MPCC and such like, have to play a bigger supportive, wider directive role here. That's within our recommendations. And a good step forward here is the Science and Technology Board, chaired currently, I think, by Chief Constable Jeremy Vaughan. Until all of those things get more mature in the way that the recommendations describe, what current chiefs are doing is using, in my view, their current budget better to work this way. There isn't more money coming out of a government, but chiefs are using their own budget with the support, of course, of the PCCs and mayors or equivalent. But the future, I hope, through the recommendations, is support from government. And by that might mean, of course, doing things and funding things in a slightly different way to encourage consistency across all policing.
Thanks, Alan. So what do you see as the future for policing productivity, because the programme is coming to its end?
So I see the future as all of our recommendations being picked up, and we've worked in transition, by the way, for the last 6 months with the College of Policing. So the recommendations are that a centre for policing productivity is created in the College of Policing to drive for obviously what policing sees, what the Home Office sees, what the college sees, and what our recommendations see as necessary to improve the policing public service delivery in a more productive way. So that's where it goes forward as a central drive, if you want. The centre takes the place of the policing productivity team and can do, I hope, a lot more with a much bigger team than we had. And then the rest of it sits fairly and squarely with police forces and stakeholders in this part of the business. So that, again, Home Office, HMIC, FRS, etc., just by two examples. But much of this is in the gift of Chief Constables. Much of it, therefore, is in the gift of the Chief Officer team, and much of it is in the gift of those who hold police into account, police and crime commissioners and the equivalent. And the three examples I've mentioned are really strong and good examples, in my view, of great leadership within policing.
And I suppose there is a risk that this is treated just as a short-term objective. So that's what we need to avoid in this case, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a great point. Well, if this just dies and dust on the shelf, then policing will go completely back to where it was. It won't get the best out of technology. It won't get the best out of AI. It won't get a real focus on, three simple things. What input are you putting in here? What is the output, and what is the outcome that is directly linked to what you're doing? And that's both performance and cost point of view. If that cultural shift doesn't have significant change over the next 3 to 5 years, then I think policing will fall behind. And in some regard, it is behind other public services. It'll fall behind in the 21st, 22nd, in due course, centuries.
So, Alan, if you put yourself into the position of being a department lead or somebody who's looking to tackle an issue in policing, where would you find information from your team to help get the routes through and how to get clarity? So where would you go to if you're in force and you want to take this forward?
So it's three main areas, please. The Government UK website. So that's a great start. Our report is on there, and lots of information to try and help. The second bit, we've sent report 1 and all the ancillary reports, report 2, and likewise to all chief constables. So it is with your chief officer and his or her team. And the third bit, we're about to send out a closing report at the end of September, which again we are going to make public, and we will likewise send that to all chief constables. So government website, in due course the College of Policing, but currently chief constables.
And just getting to another question from the chat, will there be a consistent framework, perhaps centrally driven, to gather data required to feed the model process? Value for money data has so much variation, it can be difficult to make direct comparisons comparing apples and pears. So are there any plans to avoid the repeat of those sort of things where there hasn't been data collection, perhaps, that's helped us to make those conclusions?
Yeah, so great question. And I go back to, I think I touched on it in a little earlier. I think our very first recommendation is the creation of a new data hub, and we hope that'll be owned by and run by the College of Policing. So all of the data that you are talking about is in one place. All of the data you are talking about is used equally and sensibly then by policing, Home Office, government, College of Policing, or anybody else. But that data needs two or three things. One, it needs to be better than it is from an accurate point of view, from a timely point of view, and from a rich point of view. Not everybody puts data where they should put it. So it's a great question. The data hub is the answer to that, in my view, and the finding of the review.
So, Alan, as the review draws to a close, what are your final takeaways from this work?
Again, a great question. So I hoped we would find, after 40 years as a police officer, and we did, there is excellence going on everywhere we looked. Everywhere in policing, there is fantastic work going on. Everywhere we looked, there are fantastic people doing fantastic work, and both of those elements are reflected in all of our reports. But we have to move forward, and policing has to move forward. There is too much of a patchwork quilt across policing, whether that is data, whether that's technology, or whether that's application of something that is proven to work. If it works in Durham, it should be and could be working in every other force. So I think policing just has to be more open to learning, more open to sharing, and will build on the excellence that it does in a really successful way. And the productivity review is your guide to do that.
And one last question before we draw this to a closure. Great findings, but I dare say there's little that I haven't heard at the last 4 police digital conferences. But yeah, the mandate seems to be the issue. Will this work help do a cultural shift, do you think, to make us help us move together, perhaps in a more combined way?
I think so. It's certainly got the recommendations suggest that, and if they're implemented, the answer is yes to that. To get that cultural shift, there has to be a bit of give and take on all parties, and that means, in my view, every now and then more central drive. So whether that's the Scientific Technology Committee, whether it's the MPCC, whether it's the Home Office, whether it's a government who is saying they're going to lean in more to policing, I think for a consistent approach, the cultural shift is 43 chiefs, as brilliant as they are, they have to make sure they can work a bit closer together.
That's fantastic. So look, let's put the slide up where people can find more information. And your team's still around for the rest of this month, but then we're transferring over to the college, and there's a new email address for the Productivity Centre at the College of Policing, which you can get to. We've put the QR code on screen so we can get to all the videos, all the recordings and the reports. So please do reach out, and we'll be keeping track of this as well to keep it going. So if you do need to find anything out, the email address is on there. You can find that very easily. Alan, thanks so much for that. Stick with us just for a couple of more moments left. We've just got a little bit of housekeeping to promote some other things going on over the next couple of weeks. So as I mentioned before, I'm broadcasting this live from the Emergency Services Show that's on today and tomorrow. The PDS stand is at D80 in the Hall 4. Come along and say hello. But we've got 2 sessions on stage tomorrow where our CTO, Andy Dalthwaite, is going to be talking around the journey in implementation around digital and technology. And then we're going to be talking about the AI, very relevant to what we've just been speaking about, and the ethics of AI in the morning. The team will be around to speak on that. Also, we've got a couple of other events coming up on the next slide. So there's a new webinar next week, which is going to be about Bookings app. Now, this is one that's, if we could save just a few minutes a day, saving time in arranging meetings, providing services to the public and internally, Bookings is a fantastic way. We're going to be joined by Kent and Essex, who are going to take us through some of the work they've done. And there'll be a workshop that follows that for our PDS colleagues to help in terms of implementation of data and the different elements of that. Got a fantastic webinar on standards again. This is been about driving consistency. So come along to hear more about the standards and how they are helping forces to achieve more with the less in some ways and to do all that, and a few other events. But please give us your your feedback about the webinar, scan the QR code, click the link, and we'll do that. One big event we've got coming up at the beginning of October is a SharePoint workshop for our PDS members, for police only. And this is aimed at communicators, technical leads, anybody really who's got an interest in sharing and working with information. Please do scan that QR code again, come across the page, PDS website for events, and book yourself in for that. Mike, if you could come in on some work you're doing around the College of Policing and ourselves and modernising learning and development.
Thanks, Dave, and hi, everyone. As Dave mentioned, we're running a series of workshops starting at the beginning of October, running through to mid-December, which is building on the work that we carried out and the research that took place earlier in the year around the modernising of police learning and development. We've got a great workshop to start off with the College of Policing talking about the modern learning strategy, and they're really keen to get people's thoughts and ideas about how that takes shape. But then throughout the following months, we're looking at individual areas which will all contribute towards hopefully bringing together thoughts and ideas around the use of technology within police learning and development, from the use of AI through to right at the end of the series, what the modern L&D department looks like. If you're interested, please drop us a line and I can send out some invitations. But we hope to run a really good session that will keep the debate going around how we take things forward. Thanks, David.
Thanks, Mike. So that's it for this mini-series on the Policing Productivity Review. Alan and the team who helped us pull this together, thank you so much for committing to share this with us through the Wednesday webinars. It's been we've had some fantastic feedback. Please get in touch if you want to know more, or have got other things we want to share with us through the webinars. So, Alan, thank you. And thanks, everybody, for joining us for the last couple of weeks. And we'll continue to see you next week with bookings. And it'd be amazing how much time we're going to save with that.